Welcome back in. Welcome back in. Fantasy playoff time. Good to be here. Here to answer all of your star set questions to get you ready so we can win those glorious, glorious fantasy championships. So let's just get to it and get to some of questions we got in here. Bryce, yo, Jacoby or Caleb? I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really love either one of them this week. And I've been a big Jacoby Brissett guy since he's been with the Cardinals, since he's taken over. This is the one matchup that I really don't want to play him if I don't have to, um, because the Texans have just been phenomenal all year against quarterbacks. They haven't given up a QB1 week yet so far this year. I don't think they've given up more than 17 fantasy points to any quarterback, and this just does not set up well for the Cardinals. And so, like, I mean, obviously, you're going to play Michael Wilson just because of how phenomenal he is. I don't think Marvin Harrison plays, and I don't think that. I mean, obviously, you're going to play Trey McBride too. Like those two are just like you just play them. But I don't love this spot for Brissett, and I'm worried about Caleb too because Caleb worries me because like I feel like they need to be pushed to really throw the ball. They're going to want to run the ball against the Browns in this spot. They're favorites. And so it worries me. If I didn't have to play either one of them, I wouldn't. But if I had to make a choice, I would go with Caleb Williams, just because I think it's the better matchup. I mean, I'll say looks like Denzel Ward might be out, one of their best cover corners, so that should help a little bit. But it's just they really want to run the ball. Like if they can run the ball with Swifts and Monangai, that's what they're going to do. And so it does worry me some with Caleb, but he is definitely, I think, the better play. But I know a lot of people are just going to blindly put Jacoby Brissett, as a high, as like QB1 or low end QB2 this week or high end QB2. But I just don't think it's the spot to do it. I'm much lower on him than I have been, and I've been on that train all year. What's going on, Jake? How are you doing? Feel like I got a bench at Book at this point. I'm praying CB starts, Gary Terry, Martin Hampton, or Michael Wilson at the flex, unless you think I keep rolling Egbuka. So it kind of goes one way or the other, right? Like it's a really good matchup. Like the Falcons defense is just cooked at this point, but it does sound like Mike Evans is back. The frustrating thing with Igbuka has been like the targets have been there every single week. He's been like the most frustrating player ever because he is consistently seeing like this dude is like top 7 in tight ends and targets in the league. Like I mean, literally, he hasn't gotten less than 8 targets since week 6. Like he has just been absolutely peppered with targets, but he's not doing anything with them. Some of it's on Baker because Baker is playing through this injury. Other parts of it's also on Igbuka where he's at drops. Should have had a touchdown last week. He dropped it. Um, but at this point, like I have Igbuka, believe as a low end wide receiver 3. Yeah, wide receiver 33. Because I do think Mike Evans comes back. You have Chris Godwin back. Jalen McMillan could be back. Like this becomes a lot more condensed here. And I also could see them not really wanting to throw the ball as much. Like it wouldn't surprise me if Igbuka like scored a touchdown or something like that, but I don't feel nearly as good about it if Mike Evans plays. So I love Scary Terry this week. Matchup is great. I think it actually helps him that Mariota is the quarterback because we've seen Mariota absolutely pepper Terry McLaurin with targets whenever he's the starting whenever he's starting. I have McLaurin as a top 10 wide receiver play this week. So I have no problem with setting him for Scary Terry. So that's the way that I would go with in this matchup against the Giants. Guess my only other question for this week is Mike Evans is back and Baker has all the weapons. You start him over or him or Dart. I got Dart locked and wasn't really thinking. Yeah, I would play Dart. Again, don't mind Baker. Obviously, the matchup's really good, but I would rather go with Jackson Dart in this matchup. The Commanders' defense is just so bad. It is like really, really bad. And I mean, we just saw JJ McCarthy, who looked like he was completely dead, you know, have a really solid start against them. 3 touchdowns. They didn't really have to throw the ball as much. So I would go with Jackson Dart here. I'm charting this thing through trades and waivers. I forgot who's on still. I had to win 4 of the last 5 weeks to get in. Love to see that. It's all that matters now, right? And once you're in, it's all that matters. Doesn't matter how you finish, what your record was. None of that matters anymore. Everybody's 0-0. Good evening. Need two. Michael Wilson, Mike Evans, Ashton Genty, Christian Watson, Mark Andrews, PPR, tight end premium flex. See, I know a lot of people are really high on Mark Andrews this week. I'm not as high on Mark Andrews. I'm way higher on Isaiah Likely. Um, I have Isaiah Likely probably way higher than probably most consensus, but I have Isaiah Likely at 7, and I have Mark Andrews at 16. Like, it's still a good matchup for Andrews, but like it's actually been the tight end two that is absolutely on every team that's absolutely crushed the Bengals. Like, we know the Bengals are historically bad against tight ends, but it's actually been the tight end two most weeks that has actually been the one that's gotten there. So we already seen this matchup once before. Likely at 5 for 95. Should have had a touchdown. Literally dropped it right at the, like the 1 inch line. Should have had a touchdown in that game. But so I like Likely more than I like Andrews. That being said, looking at the options here, like I don't mind Ashton Genty. It's a better matchup. I think it would really help if Jalen Carter was out to play at Ashton Genty's because of their run defense. Obviously, the Raiders defense isn't great, or Raiders offensive line, excuse me, isn't great. It's harder to trust. Does he get targets? I would probably go with Michael Wilson. I would love to say I probably go Mike Evans. I mean, if this was different, like when it comes to Mike Evans, like if this was like a lower body injury, maybe I'd be a little bit more concerned. But considering it was a broken collarbone, like everything else should be fine. He's gotten in now, the second week of practice. I would probably go with Mike Evans and Michael Wilson is who I'd go with. And I'm a big Christian Watson guy. I just don't love the matchup against the Broncos. I just think that game in general is kind of gross, just in terms of like fantasy points, fantasy production. So I probably lean Wilson and Evans here. Andrews or Theo Johnson. Also pick one running back: Bam Neal, K9, Brees Hall. Give me Theo Johnson. I have Theo Johnson. Actually, you probably can't see it. I have Theo Johnson at 12, ahead of Mark Andrews here. Obviously, a great matchup, like I've said. Uh, I don't see anybody being able to cover Theo Johnson here from the Commanders. I mean, the Commanders' linebackers are old and slow, and so I feel really good about Theo Johnson this week. So I would go with Theo Johnson, and then at running back, I think I would go with Devin Neal as long as Kamara, which I don't think Kamara is going to play. Didn't practice again today, but yes, I would go Devin Neal. So I have, as far as the RB2s are concerned, I have Devin Neal at 16. Where was that at? Yeah. So I have Devin Neal at RB 16. Just really love the usage that he's been seeing recently. I mean, he's getting like elite workload usage in his backfield. Scored a touchdown last week. I guess, and they get a decent matchup this week against the Panthers too. So I would go with Devin Neal. Chip, PPR, Myers, Marks, or Hampton. Give me Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is obviously like, I mean, has been awesome since he's been to the Jaguars, and he is now like this team's wide receiver one. He's running all the 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 routes that you love to see. Like we kind of saw last year, like Chris Godwin, like the first half of the year, just absolutely crush it, and Liam Cohen's offense because it runs through the slot, and that's where Jacoby Myers has been playing. And so, like Jacoby Myers is on a heater. I would go with Jacoby Myers here. I don't mind Woody Marks, but he is dealing with some injury stuff. Nick Chubb's probably not going to play, so that helps. Hampton just makes it really hard to trust. Like the Chiefs are really good against the run. They have been good against the run all year, and them splitting touches with it all makes me less excited to play Omari and Hampton. So give me Jacoby Myers. Monty, Jalen Warren, or Wandale. I would go Wandale. Again, love the matchup against the Commanders. So I would go with Wandale Robinson. Miami has a wide receiver too. And I can't play David Montgomery. I have no excitement whatsoever to play him. Need one out of Christian Watson, Ekbuka, or Michael Pittman. Oh man. Um, sh- Speaking of which, I haven't even talked about it. Philip Rivers being back in the NFL is absolutely wild. Like, there was a lot of things that this year that have happened, and I'm like, I did not see this coming. This is the furthest like that I could have ever imagined that we were going to see. That we were going to see Philip Rivers back in the NFL at 44 years old, and starting an NFL game. Like just absolutely wild. I don't really know what to expect. I think it probably helps someone like Michael Pittman because he's not really a deep threat. I don't see Philip Rivers at all throwing the ball deep. And so I think everything's going to be underneath, but it's not a great matchup against the Seahawks, obviously, on the road for his first start. So with very little practice time, he's basically getting in this week. And so, like, I guess you could go, I could probably be Pittman, but I think Christian Watson is also one way. I think I would probably Christian Watson, I think, has a higher ceiling. Because I don't think that like it's gonna be like a shadow situation with Patrick Surtain or anything like that with Christian Watson. I don't think Watson is good enough to receive that type of treatment. And so I think Christian Watson would be the other way I would go. If you're looking for a ceiling, which we are, obviously, we're playing in the fantasy playoffs, but says going to throw the ball 50 times. Houston's an ugly matchup, but other have the receivers. Yeah. I just don't love this spot at all. Bitter cold in Chicago. Yeah, it's going to be cold like all over. Like a lot of these games this weekend are going to be. Let's look at NFL weather. But a lot of these games this weekend, that's pretty much going to be the theme. There's not a whole lot of like snow or anything like that. It's just a lot of really cold. I mean, the Chiefs game on Sunday is going to be 20 degrees. The Bengals Cincinnati game, temperatures are going to be in the teens. The Giants game is going to be around freezing, around 30, 32 degrees, no real wind. Chicago is going to be near 10 degrees. Uh, the Patriots game is going to be about 30, 32 degrees. Philadelphia game, same thing. Seattle game, there's a little bit of chance of rain. And then the Pittsburgh game is also 20 degrees. So like half your games are going to be really cold, but it's also December. It's kind of what you expect. Chris, do you prefer Singletary or Tracy versus Washington? Should I sit Monangai for Neal or Singletary / Tracy? I'm playing Neal for sure over all of them. Um, I don't want to play Singletary or Tracy if I don't have to, but the matchup is awesome. The problem is that like I'm not exactly sure how this is going to shake out. They're coming off their bye. Tracy sounds like he should be good to go for this one. Um, I mean, he's still, I think, probably the starting running back for this team. The only problem for the Cleveland game is typically they have been really good against the run, but obviously we just saw Tony Pollard go absolutely off against them. The random most. I mean, Tony Pollard had done a damn thing all year and just goes nuclear, probably on most people's benches. But I would probably lean Monangai, and I just say that because I know Monangai is going to get 15 touches. I really don't know what to expect from the Giants the Giants running backs. I would bet they probably split touches, but picking which one I think is going to be tough. I know Monangai, who's basically in a full on just 50-50 split between him and Swift at this point. I would probably go Monangai and Neal if I had to, but I do like Tracy. I prefer him to Singletary. But it's just kind of the way that I lean. One playoff question. Who for my QB1? I got Brissett, but waivers are Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, or Caleb Williams. I would go either Trevor Lawrence or CJ Stroud. Great matchup for CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud at home has been way better. CJ Stroud at home was averaging like 260 passing yards, like 2 passing touchdowns per game in his career. The only concern here would be just like, do the Texans really throw the ball that much? But I would expect them to. They haven't really been able to successfully run the ball all that much either. So I think that helps them. And so I would go. I would probably go Lawrence and against the Jets, but Stroud would be right behind him. I think I have them like back to back. I think I have Lawrence at 14 and Stroud at 15. Yes. Jimbo, Debo, or Terry? This is easily scary Terry for me. I have Terry as a top 10 wide receiver play. Roop, how you doing? I just need help with my line. Quarterback is Herbert, RB1 and 2 is Kyron and Bijan. Wide receiver 1 and 2 and 3 is Jennings, Debo, Myers. Flex is Godwin. Kickers Pinheiro. Rams defense. Bench is Brissett. So, also I see it says George Pickens for tight end, which I meant flex. Okay, so you have Mike Evans, Judy, and Ferguson on the bench. I don't. I guess you go Herbert. Like the only good thing with Herbert right now is that he's running the ball a lot. But I don't. I have my concerns with Herbert here. Uh, on the road against the Chiefs, but I would play him over Brissett. So if like that's your only spot, like I would keep that. RB1 and 2, Kyron Bijan, that's fine. Wide receiver 1 and 2, Jennings, Debo, Myers. So I would probably sit Debo for Mike Evans as long as he plays tomorrow. Other than that, I think this looks good. Actually, I see you have Godwin the flex. So I guess I would just swap Mike Evans for I would swap Mike Evans for Godwin. You said you had Pickens. I'll see where it says George Pickens for tight end. Give me a little clarification on that because I'm confused. Hey man, was wondering if you can give me some advice. Need to decide between 3 players. It's PPR, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. The 3 players are Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans, Kyrie Williams. I'm not sure. Wide receiver, I'm going to go Mike Evans. This is going to end up coming back to bite me. It's one of those. But I can't. I want to play him, especially against the Falcons. This is just a tremendous spot. But I would play Mike Evans. I think as far as the other one is concerned, it's it should be Kyron Williams, right? Like one, I want to play as many players from that Rams and Lions game as I can. That game right now has like a ridiculous 55 or it's like 55 point total, which is by far the most we've seen all year. And so like that game could go absolutely nuclear. And so like this is a spot where you just want as many players you can get from that game. That makes sense, obviously. And so I probably go Kyron just because of the touchdown upside. It does worry me with the Blake Corum stuff and the way that Blake Corum is like getting more and more and more opportunities in that backfield is becoming more and more and more of a split. And so like last week was a little bit more garbage time where Blake Corum got a lot of the run, but Blake Corum also looked really good. The thing with Stephon Diggs is like I don't mind him, but like his usage has been all over the place. Like as soon as we thought that like he was back to being kind of the wide receiver 1 in the offense, like he's kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit here. I mean, week 11 he scored, or excuse me, week 10 he scored 15.6, and then week 11 he scored 19. But then 4 and 5 the last couple of weeks. We've seen this matchup once before, and obviously, that's when he had his best game of the year, scoring 24.6. Like I don't mind Stephon Diggs here in a spot against the Bills, a pretty huge game for both these teams. Another revenge game for Stephon Diggs. Like I think you could go there. If I was going to sit anybody, it probably would be Kyron, just because of the complete split between Blake Corum is the only thing that worries me. But I also think there's a hell of a lot more volatility with Stephon Diggs because you just don't really know exactly what you're going to get because he's still basically playing around 40-50% of the snaps and he's running about 55-60% of the routes. So like it is worrisome, but it's a spot where they should have to throw the ball a lot more. So it is a spot where you could see Diggs take advantage of that. Michael Wilson could be good in PPR this week. Jacoby peppers him, and he might not have Stingley on him all game with Marvin Harrison Jr. back. If Marvin Harrison Jr. plays, I don't want to play Michael Wilson because it completely changed the outlook for Michael Wilson. But I don't think Marvin Harrison plays. Marvin Harrison did not practice today. I do not believe. Um, yeah, he didn't practice today. I guess we'll see if he practices tomorrow, but I don't think he's going to play this week, to be honest with you. Which you don't want. Like as a Michael Wilson player, like if you do not want Marvin Harrison back because it makes playing Michael Wilson about not great. I mean, we saw it before. He saw 7 targets, which is fine, but not for what you're looking for. Full PPR, 2 wide receivers, Godwin or Evans, Godwin, Tet, Devonta Smith, Mechie, Diggs. Thanks again. I'm gonna go with Mike Evans and Tet McMillan. On the same page. Thanks, and best wishes. Yes, best wishes to you, and hope everybody gets W's this week because yeah, so we all get the fantasy championships for Christmas, which is gonna be great because the fantasy championship week is starts on Christmas Day with 3 games on Christmas Day. So, fantasy championship week is gonna be awesome with that. So, Will Robinson, McLaurin, Watson, or Evans PPR. So Wandale, Terry, Christian Watson, Mike Evans. I would go Terry McLaurin. Philip Rivers being back is the best thing to happen to the Jets this season. We got their pick. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's just wild to me, actually. I just can't. I don't know. I will say his introductory press conference that he did, I think it was today or yesterday, was very entertaining. But it's just absolutely wild that that's the first person they went to. It does make sense because he already has familiarity with the offense. And there's like great quarterbacks just sitting out there. And where they sit, they really need to win, obviously. And then people have questioned like Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson, I don't think people realize like how jacked up his face is. It sounds like it's pretty significant. And it could be something where he just because apparently he has like vision issues with this. And so I don't know. But he's not playing again this year. So Barber King, start Nix or Brissett. I would go with Bo Nix. Start 3, Kyron, Gibbs, Corum, Woody, Hampton. Give me Gibbs, obviously. We'll have to think twice about that. Kyron, and then give me Omari and Hampton. It is close. Start 1, Godwin, Watson, Sutton. It's really close. I would probably go with Sutton here. Yeah. Very close. I have Sutton just over Watson. Start 2, Buka, Sutton. Same one? No, it's not. Give me Devonta Smith. And Cortland Sutton. So here's the positive. So do you think CD plays this week based on limited participation? The fact that he got an unlimited practice is actually really good news because that's the first step of the concussion protocol. And so if you would have asked me this Monday, I would have said there's no chance that he plays this week. But I mean, he did get the extra time off, so it's not like he's coming off of they played Sunday. If he played Sunday, there's no shot. I think he'd play this week. But considering it happened on Thursday, so gave him the 3 extra days to get right. It is a very positive step because that's your first step of the protocol. The next step will be tomorrow to see if he gets a full practice in. He doesn't necessarily have to get a full practice in to be able to be cleared, but it becomes much tougher to get cleared because you have to basically go half then full, and then the next day you get cleared from an independent neurologist. And so, but the limited is a very positive step. Now we've also seen players that have went limited all week on a concussion and still didn't play. But it's going to be crucial for basically if he gets a full practice, and yeah, he'll be back for Monday. It does sound like the Cowboys seem to be more optimistic that he should be back. Need a flexible PPR, Waddle, JMO, or Michael Wilson. It's gonna be Jalen Waddle for me against Pittsburgh. It is close. Also need two: Terry, Hendo, Dowdle, Ladd, or Michael Wilson. It's from Secret. Give me Scary Terry for sure. And then give me Travion Henderson. It does worry me with him just because of obviously the stuff going on from Andre, but it is a really good matchup. The Bills really struggle against opposing running backs. They have all year. It comes down to, I think, for me, Henderson or Michael Wilson. And I just like the matchup better for Henderson. One, so Emmanuel Wilson or Jalen Wright. So Achan, I'm 90% sure plays. I think it's pretty safe bet that he's gonna play. So I don't think he's in question. And I would assume that Jacobs plays too. Probably more of a maintenance day thing than anything with him for Wednesdays, especially with all the injuries and stuff that he's been playing through. But I would lean that Josh Jacobs is gonna play. Oh, you were talking about my rankings. Well, good catch then. How did I put George Pickens there? You're damn right. You're damn right I did, Roop. See, that's what I get for trying to rush through that before I went live so I could get these done and transferred over. But not anymore. Good catch. Now I see what you were saying. I thought you were talking about me. Or you. EC, start one. Marks, Tracy, Aaron Jones, or Charbonnet. Give me Aaron Jones. I like this spot for Aaron Jones against the Cowboys. Cowboys run defense has gotten better than what it was, but it's still a susceptible. So I would go Aaron Jones here. I think it would be close second, and then Marks would be right behind him. Butte back really hurt Diggs too. I mean, yeah, but it just really depends on the type of matchup that it is, right? Because I mean, the Patriots want to run the ball, like they want to be a run heavy offense, and so it really just depends on if they get pushed, have to throw the ball a lot. Tight end Jake Ferguson, Waller, or Mike. I would go Mike Evans. EC. Although likely I currently have him over QK, but yeah, it's just a really, really solid spot for Isaiah Likely. I mean, I love him this week. Seattle or Houston this week. I mean, flip a coin if you have them, but I would go with Seattle against Philip Rivers. Like no mobility whatsoever. One of the best defenses in Seattle. I mean, maybe Philip Rivers pulls something out of his ass, but I would still go Seattle. I think I have Seattle. Yes, I have Seattle at 1. I have Texans at 3. So both are good. Or both are good spots. I don't think you can go wrong really with either, but I prefer Seattle even with Philip Rivers. Who should I start RB1 and 2? I also need a flex. Walker, Jitsi, Monongai, Charbonnet, Bam, Wandell, Jordan, Addison, Jaden Reed. So RB1 and 2, I'm gonna go with Genty and I guess Kenneth Walker. Hate myself for it. I'm so tired of him. I'll be happy when the season's over and I'll fire him off into the sun. But inevitably, because he's a free agent after this year, he's going to get signed by somebody. And I'm going to get pulled right back in. He's going to get signed by somebody that's going to be a good spot. Watch the Chiefs or somebody like that sign Kenneth Walker. I'm going to be pulled right back into this dude. But um, anyway, yeah, I'd probably go Genty and Walker, and then at flex, I'm going to go Wan'Dale Robinson. Saw Cam Newton is salty about Rivers' appointment. I know, like I just don't get it. I saw that with Cam Newton, like what he's upset about. Like I get it, like just Philip Rivers is 44. I get that part, but the last time that Cam Newton played, I mean, it was really bad, and so it was completely one dimensional. Could only run the ball. So like it's like probably a better version of Anthony Richardson, basically what he was at the end of his career. And like, don't get me wrong, like Philip Rivers is not I mean, he's 44 years old, hasn't played in 5 years. It blows me away. But the thing with him is it's now or never for them. Like they have to keep winning games to be able to make the playoffs. And Philip Rivers knows the offense. Like I guess from what they were saying, from what I was seeing from him or what about this was that I guess like because he's been a head football coach at a high school and he's been running the very similar offense that Steichen does. And I guess they talk like weekly. So like he knows the system, he knows the offense. The last time Philip Rivers played, he actually threw for 4,000 yards, but he had 24 passing touchdowns as well. Like kind of wild to think about it. But anyways, he's actually never not thrown for actually well no. Once or twice he didn't throw for 4,000 yards, but yeah. I will say it's great news for Jalen Warren though. Luckily, I have a bye, but worried about week 16 tight end. Any ideas? I have Gatson and Kincaid, but Theo and Juwan and likely available. Looking to stag him before if he thinks. Let's see. Got to bring up the old. See what the week 16 schedule is. So, Chargers, I know, play the Cowboys. Gatson, Kincaid. Who do the Bills play? Oh, Bills play the Browns. Giants got the Vikings. And the Ravens play the Patriots on Sunday Night Football in Baltimore. So I think it comes down to Likely and Gatson for me. I think are the two options that I think make the most sense. Saints do have the Jets. That's not bad either, to be honest. But I think I'd probably go with. I don't mind picking up. So like, I don't mind picking up Likely. I don't mind that. Like he started to run more routes and things have gotten better for him. It is. I can see this Chargers Cowboys game having a pretty high total because it's especially in Dallas, and these two offenses and stuff like that. But I would probably go with either Getson or Likely. I think would be the two that I would lean more towards, just because of the matchup stuff. Because like Cleveland, I just don't see the Bills. I mean, we know the Bills just want to run it down your throat and not throw the ball as least possible, and I can see that very well with this game. Would you drop Mechie to get Algier handcuffed for my Bijan or not? Yes, I would absolutely do that. With Brady Cook now starting quarterback, um, I don't really love anybody from this offense. Okay, I see your top 7. I was wondering where Bucky is at. Saw where you got Henderson and Harvey. I had Henderson in. Yeah. Let's bring up my starting running backs, and I brought up my quarterbacks. Why did I do that? There they are. There they are. Kevin, choose one. One flex, PPR, and wide receiver. Walker, Mike Wilson, Zay Flowers. I would just go with Mike Wilson and Zay Flowers, honestly. If I do not have to play Kenneth Walker, I do not want to. And I've been riding this dude and like in DFS because he's cheap in DFS. And then like the one week that I jumped off completely is the week he scored like 20 points, and then I jump right back on. And then he just goes to keep doing what he was doing. Justin Jefferson is on my bench this week. The only tough part about that is the fact that the only tough part about that is with him is that the matchup, right? JJ McCarthy did look better. That was at least a plus for for him. So I mean that was obviously encouraging. So, I mean, but it still didn't translate to anything for Justin Jefferson, though. I think Justin Jefferson had another bad week. Like, I don't like hate it. Like, if you can, but it's just always worries me because it's Justin Jefferson, right? Like, and that can change at any time. And I do like Wandell's matchup. So it's fantasy playoffs. Obviously, we can't keep waiting around. So I guess I get it. It makes sense. I Ramondre for coming back for Hand owners makes me so scared every week on volume. I know he's better. He is definitely better. Um, But this is what he does. Like this is what Vrabel. I mean, if we remember, this is what Vrabel did with Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis. He was splitting touches. So, are we worried about the weather in Cincy? No, I mean it is going to be cold. I wouldn't be too concerned with it. Like it looks like it's definitely going to be cold for sure. Looks like there's it's going to be where's that game? There it is. So it's going to be it's going to be 12 degrees. Uh, so that's great. It'll be 16 by the time the game's winding up, so that'll make you feel better. But there is no win, so that's at least a plus. Wilson's gonna have to do good. Literally, only guy fed. Sure, he's definitely the only guy, and he's definitely gonna get fed. Like, there's no denying those two things. But this is against, I mean, arguably the best defense in the league with the best secondary in the league. Also, another thing to keep in mind for the Cardinals is the Cardinals also lost their starting left tackle for last week, so that's obviously a huge blow to their offensive line. And I think their center also went down. So, like, and again, this is the best defense in the league at home for the Texans. So, like, don't get me wrong. Like I've said, that like they've gotten there. Brissett's gotten there in a lot of garbage time stuff, but like this just feels like a little bit different of a spot. Dart or Hurts, AD Mitchell or Mike. So Mike Evans, and then so I mean the Eagles have been so bad, right? Um, I probably still go Hurt. They're getting the Raiders at home, but if you wanted to go Jackson Dart, I would not blame you one bit because both are in really good matchups. But I think Jalen Hurts against the Raiders. If they can't score 30 points against the Raiders, I don't know what else to say at that. If Marvin Harrison doesn't play, is Wilson at least a flex? He's definitely worth a flex. Like it's not like I hate Michael Wilson. I have Michael Wilson at wide receiver 15. So like I'm not saying that like I think that he's terrible, but I think he can get there on volume. But it's not a great matchup. Do you like Fannin or Kelsey more this week? Harold Fannin. We're firing up Harold Fannin. Harold Fannin is definitely Shedeur Sanders' favorite target, and that's the dude I would rather fire up. Are we worried about the weather in Cincinnati for having McPherson? I could pivot to Cam Little or Eddie Pinheiro. No, I mean the cold affects kicking a little bit, but um, it's not that huge of a concern for me. But if you are wanting to pivot, because like if you just don't want to play him in this spot, I would go with Eddie Pinheiro. I have Eddie Pinheiro at 7 and Cam Little. I have him at 14. Carolina or Pittsburgh's defense, I would go with Pittsburgh. Hoping I can pick up Waller next week so I can just keep. Yeah, there you go. Just keep the trade. That's flow chart play every single week. Just who they're playing the Bengals. Is that guy available? Pick him up. But then again, Mark, if you follow the trend for this, it would actually be probably Greg Dulcich would be the tight end to have because it's really been the tight end twos that have really killed the Bengals. I mean, like I said, Isaiah Likely a couple weeks ago was the one that had the better game. If you remember the Steelers game, it was Patty Fry over Jonnu who had that monster game with that the huge touchdown run. So yeah, but no, I mean, I think Waller's still a great. I would love that. Uh, Super frustrating the game with Garrett Wilson and Drake London. Yeah, Sam, drop Britton Strange for fan. Absolutely, I have no problem doing that. And I like Britton Strange. EC half point PPR tight end premium. Charbonnet or Waller. Pittsburgh does struggle against tight ends too, and with it being a tight end premium, I would probably go Waller. I don't mind Charbonnet at all. It's just with Charbonnet that obviously he's completely touchdown dependent. 49ers or Jags? Give me the Jags. James, should I start Swift or Neal? As long as Kamara doesn't play, I would go with Devin Neal. I don't mind Swift, but I prefer Devin Neal because he is getting all of the touches in the backfield right now. Scored a touchdown last week and may have had a little bit more if it wasn't for Tyler Shook running in, touchdowns. But last week he had 19 carries, ran 60% of the routes, 84 total yards, a touchdown. I just prefer him with the role that he's seeing. Full PPR have Kyle Pitts already. Do I drop Strange for Fannin? Yes. Yeah, we're doing that. Dalton Kincaid or Juwan Johnson. On this one, I would go with Kincaid. Need an RB2 between Javonte Swift, Woody Marks, or Travion in PPR league. Give me Javonte. What does the Mark Andrews contract extension mean for Isaiah Likely? Is he gone in the offseason? Yes, I think he's gone. Likely is a free agent after this year. So I would have just best guess that they probably went to Likely, tried to get something done. He probably either said A, he wants to hit free agency, or B, he was asking for more money. They went back to 31-year-old Mark Andrews and just got a deal done. That's the only thing that I would guess. But I would assume that Likely's gone after this year. Does Stingley shadow to the top wide receiver, or does he stick to one side? I don't watch them enough. He doesn't typically shadow, but I mean, unless it's like an elite wide receiver, I would assume they're not going to treat Michael Wilson in that such. And they still have an incredible secondary. I mean, they have arguably one of the best secondaries in the league. And so I don't think they'll need the shadow. PPR, Kincaid or first Hunter Henry. Give me Kincaid, and then give me Britton Strange. Well, that's kickers. You didn't ask for. I'm having a hard time deciding between Carolina or Pittsburgh. So I only do the top 12 for defenses just because after that, I probably could have expanded it to top 24, honestly. But I do have Pittsburgh at 9. So that it's just so when it comes to Carolina versus or when it comes to Pittsburgh, excuse me, that I mean the Dolphins obviously have been on a tear recently. Have played really a much better football. But when it comes to Pittsburgh, I just think that they are able to rack up sacks. I mean, Tua has not played well, so it's really going to come down to can they stop the run, which is something they've struggled with recently for sure. But I think there's also a difference between the Dolphins and like the Bills and stuff like that. And so I think if they can contain Devon Achan a little bit, I think they can definitely get to the quarterback and make it rough for Tua. So I would prefer to go Pittsburgh. Jags D's going to crush this week. Yes. Brady Cook finally got an opportunity last week and did not go well. I think it was 2 interceptions, 6 sacks for him. So Evans, Rico, Ladd, or Reed need 2. Evans and um this is tough. I probably go Rico. Dave Canales, head coach of the Cardinals this week, was talking about the situation and was basically saying that they still want, obviously Rico's the early down back, Chuba is more the third down back, change of pace back, stuff like that. When it comes to the situation, obviously the last time we saw the Panthers was against the Rams, and so obviously that game was a little bit different. Obviously, not a great matchup either, but I think that had more to do with the fact that why he only played 40% of the snaps, just the way the game script and everything went there. But I do think better. I think they get more back to what they were a little bit closer previously to this, and so I would expect Rico probably to see 60% of the opportunities and against the Saints. So, and honestly, this is like a huge game for because the Panthers need to win to keep track, be able to keep the division lead. So, Evans over Wilson this week. I would play Michael Wilson over Evans, but it's really close. PPR, Kyron Williams or Michael Wilson. If Marv is out, then there is Slayton or Juwan Johnson. 16-man league for the second question. If Marv is out, which I do think he's going to be out, I would probably go with Michael Wilson. Again, don't love the matchup. Kind of talked about this a lot, but it's just with Kyron, just he is just continually losing touches. And before it wasn't as big of a deal because he wasn't losing goal line work. It was just simply like short yardage stuff, and Blake Corum was mixing in. But now, like what we saw last week, and again, it could have been the blowout, the script, and everything else. Why they gave him, I mean, but he's been capped. Like Kyron Williams has always been like a volume monster, right? But like he doesn't have like an incredibly high ceiling, but he's still scoring touchdowns at a pretty decent clip, and that's where like Kyron becomes more interesting. I think Kyron is a better floor play. Let me put it this way: I think Kyron's a better floor play. Somebody that could probably better shot of just giving you, and you feel pretty good. He's going to give you 10 to 12, PPR points, maybe 12, 10 to 14, somewhere in that range. Feel pretty confident with that. Where Michael Wilson has a significantly higher ceiling. Like Kyron, I think Michael Wilson could give you 30, but like it's probably going to be a lot of garbage time. If Marvin Harrison can't go, do you start? Oh, actually, I didn't answer your other question. Sorry. Uh, I don't mind Darius Slayton. Again, tremendous matchup. Last time we saw him, 2 catches, 41 yards, but I mean, it wasn't like crazy target volume. I would probably go Juwan Johnson there. I don't mind Slayton. Again, I think it's very much. I think Johnson is a safer floor play and just a better like where you can count on. Where Slayton, I think there's a lot of volatility here. But I will say with Slayton, 3 of his last 4 games, he has scored double-digit fantasy points. So I think if you're shooting for just straight ceiling play, like if you're just needing if that's what you're shooting for, like maybe you're not favored to win this week or it's not looking as good for you, I would go Darius Slayton there for Juwan Johnson. That's kind of the way I see that spot. It is close, like between both of them. Excuse me. If Marvin Harrison can't go, do you start Johnston or Reed at wide receiver 3 in a PPR league? Sally, those are my only options since I have Kelsey on my bench with Bannon starting. I would probably go Johnston. Evans, Wilson, Tet, Jennings, pick 2. So Tet, I think it's Tet and Wilson. I know it's really close between the 3 of them. Let's see. Oh, I have Tet at 17. So it is really close. Like I said, I have all 3 of them at wide receiver 15, 16, and 17. The only thing that worries you with Tet is volume, right? Because if the Panthers can come out and build a quick lead on them, they're just going to run the ball down their throat, the Saints' throat. They're not going to open it up. They're not going to throw it that much. That's the only thing that worries you about Tet. Where when it comes to Mike Evans, I think it's a really good spot, really good matchup. Poole, Jay Poole, Boswell, Cam Little, Pinheiro for sure for me. Stroud or Brissett? This is easily Stroud. Really like this spot for Stroud. Don't love Brissett. Kind of talked through this a lot already, but I do not like Brissett at all. This is one of the worst match. No, actually, it's not one of. It's the worst matchup you could ask for this offense. And the Texans haven't allowed a QB1 score all season. They also, I don't think they've allowed. I think it's more than 17 fantasy points in a game to a quarterback this year. Also, the Cardinals are missing multiple pieces now among their offensive line after last week. McVay is weird. Kyron is like 190 pounds. Use him as a goal line guy. I don't mind when I want him. I did last year. Yeah. See what always made Kyron is kind of what we talked about with him is like it's just all volume. Everything he does was predicated because he was just getting an elite workload. And now he's not getting that because Blake Corum is losing. So it makes Kyron a lot harder to trust. Baker or Brissett? I would go with Baker on this one. Would you start Sutton or Flournoy if CD ends up getting ruled out? If CD's out, I would probably bump Ryan Flournoy up to a high end wide receiver 3. So I would have him ahead of Sutton. But I do think that Sutton plays. Or Sutton. I do think CD plays, excuse me. But if he doesn't, I probably would go Flournoy. Evening, league is full PPR, but also 1 point per pass completion. Need to pick between Hurts or Brissett. I would go with Hurts. It's crazy that we're even having to consider this, and I totally get it with with the Eagles and how poorly their offense has been and how bad they played. Like it totally makes sense. But like I said, one's playing the Raiders at home, and the other one's playing the Texans. I'll go with Jalen Hurts. Ekbuka or Terry at the flex. Absolutely, easily, scary Terry. I have him at a top 10 wide receiver play. Super flex, Riley or Pickett or start flex. So here's the thing. I don't think Riley Leonard's going to play. I think it's going to be Philip Rivers is going to be the one that starts for the Colts. And then Kenny Pickett against the Eagles. I'd probably go with Pickett. It's just I don't necessarily love Debo or Hubbard. Like if you wanted to go Debo, I don't blame you, but I just don't know fully what to expect with Hubbard. First round bye playoff rolling out with this lineup: Dak, Javante, Saquon, JSN, Devonta Smith, Strange, Gibbs, and Achan. That is phenomenal. I'm gonna guess that by the end of the year, we're gonna learn that teams that made it to the fantasy championship with JSN is gonna be one of the highest owned players. He's just been so good this year. It's consistent. I think he's had like what one bad game all year, I think. But the dude's just been incredibly consistent. Also has a really high ceiling, but uh monster year for JSN. Thinking about going Wandell over Devonta, but I don't know. I'm fine with doing that for sure. Do you have faith that Igbuka will produce something positive this week? Like, I mean, how like what are we looking to produce? Like, I mean, I think he'll get a couple. I mean, he can have some catches for sure. I actually think that Mike Evans being out there could actually help Igbuka because now he's not saying like he's not seeing the he's not obviously going to be doubled or like he's not getting the number one wide receiver treatment. Let me put it that way. So I think you can actually help open him up a little bit to where I think he's not a bad play. Like he's still like for me like a top 36 wide receiver, but it's obviously not as good as what it was without Evans. But also at the same time, he wasn't good without Evans in any way. Todd, Kyron, or Harvey? I would go with. I believe it's. Yeah, I would go. I would go with Kyron. Sutton, Tech, Godwin, Evans, pick two, and we were just all in the Evans tonight. That didn't come out right. But it would be Evans and Tet for me. If CD's out, my team is cooked. I got the best team in the league this week in fantasy. I'm projected 123.5 point PPR. I'm projected to lose by 10. Yeah, but I mean projections are wrong all the time. So what what is your what is the team that you're playing against look like, Jake? Let's get it. What's up, fellas? Halfway PPR. Do you one running back, one wide receiver, one flex? Kyron, Hendy, Marks, Brian Thomas Jr., Judy, Slayton, or Mechie have Gibbs and Myers. And currently, for RB1 and wide receiver one, MHJ is questionable. Yeah, I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. plays. So I don't think you're going to have to worry about that. One running back, I would go with Travion Henderson. One wide receiver, I would go with Brian Thomas Jr. And then at flex, I would go with Kyron Williams. Yeah. So Kyron, Hendo, and Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah, I was thinking about it today, like the draft this year and like how things went, and kind of. I mean, we also in our Discord that we have, somebody had asked a question about like what's something that like we learned from this year. And I think the things that really stood out to me, a couple of things that like really, I think like lessons learned type things that I was thinking about this today. Just because who doesn't think about just random fantasy football stuff while they're you know not whether they're at work or whatever it is they're doing. But I think the two things that stood out to me this year, just off the top of my head, were like overvaluing certain players, like RJ Harvey and Travion Henderson, for example. Like it should have been obvious the way that things were going to go with that offense, and us overvaluing like people overvaluing rookies, because like Harvey and Henderson, once they got up to like anywhere from like the fourth to fifth round, like some of them even got as high as the third round. Like especially with their, and I think the lesson learned was is like understanding the offense that they were going to, that didn't make sense to draft them where they were being drafted at, because like Sean Payton historically has always had a committee. They brought in J.K. Dobbins. Clearly, it was going to be a full on committee. And then when it came to Henderson, same thing. Like Mike Vrabel in his career always has had like, especially like we saw it with Derrick Henry until it wasn't. But like I said, Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis split touches, and they were using Derrick Henry in a limited role like that. And so like I think like when it comes to rookies, we always want to like overvalue them. And I'm not saying we should like avoid rookies because I think people take it too far. But like understanding the situations, I think matters more than anything than like the certain players' hype. And we do it every year too with, with Travis Etienne. Like Travis Etienne, remember when Tank Bigsby came in the league? Everybody said he was dead. Everybody said Travis Etienne was dead, and it didn't matter. Tank Bigsby did absolutely nothing. And then the same thing happened with Bashal Tutin this year, where once again Etienne started going to ninth or 10th round, and Etienne and fantasy points per game this year is a running back 11. And then the other thing that stood out to me, I think, is like if your name's not Josh Allen, I would not draft a quarterback in the first 8 or 9 rounds of my draft. Um, Chasing early round quarterback has absolutely killed people. Like the early round quarterbacks, sure, outside of Josh Allen, have been pretty bad this year. Jalen Hurts hasn't been great. He's had his moments. He hasn't been like completely killed you, but like there's definitely been a lot of bad weeks. Lamar Jackson has struggled with injuries and then other things like that. Baker Mayfield was an early round pick. Bo Nix was an early round pick. Or not. I'm talking about within the first 10 rounds. Where like this year, like Dak Prescott, Drake May, like both those guys are like two that come straight to my mind that are just late round quarterbacks that could have been had in the 10th, 11th, 12th round versus drafting a quarterback like Lamar in like the fourth round that absolutely killed you. So I don't know. Those are things that just that I was thinking about today of like lessons learned from this year to next. Sorry, I know people are not here to listen to all that, but Goff or Sanders? Jared Goff for me. Really love Jared Goff. This is an excellent game environment. Like I said, this Rams and Lions game is a 55 point total. It's the largest of the entire year. Also, am I crazy to starting Purdy over Stafford? Yes, I would go Stafford. And the only reason I say that is because, like I said, I just said like this is an incredibly high total, 55 points. I mean, this game has the potential to be an absolute shootout. I don't think it's necessarily gonna be like the Chiefs Rams all those years ago when it was like what was I mean those 48-45 or something crazy. Like I don't think it's going to be like that. But this game has a ton of playoff implications on it, and there's just a lot riding on this game. And these two teams are two of the most aggressive offenses, and so like I would play Stafford. What would worry you about Purdy, which I like Brock Purdy, I'm 11, but would be they just steamrolled the Titans and don't have to do anything, and they just don't really throw the ball as much. So they let Christian McCaffrey just eat up everything. Who do you think is the best offensive coordinator candidate for this upcoming coaching hiring cycle? Um, I mean, let me see. I will say the ones that baffle me are like Matt Nagy. Hearing his name come up as like a possible head coach again blows my mind. I don't get that one. Let's see. Oh, I think the top one, right? I don't even know what I was thinking about. Should have came right to me. Is Clint Kubiak. I think he's definitely going to get a head coaching job somewhere for sure. I think he's certainly somebody that's going to be in line for that. I think possibly Mike LaFleur, the Rams. I mean, the Rams coaching tree continues to produce really high results. So I think him. Um, but I think the one maybe Cliff Kingsbury gets another look. I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, I've heard the Arthur Smith stuff again. Like I hope not. I don't want to see Arthur Smith as a head coach again. I don't even want to see him as offensive coordinator, but that's neither here nor there. But I definitely think Clint Kubiak is probably near the top of that list of terms of just the guy that has the highest likelihood. It also could honestly it's possible that like Mike Kafka with the Giants. I know there's talk that he could possibly be the offensive court or the head coach that just takes over there. So I think that's another one you could probably look at. Playing Lamar, Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra, Derrick Henry, CMC, Kittle, Swift with Fairbairn. Yeah, that's tough. Because I mean Henry's obviously in a great spot. CMC's in an elite spot against the Titans. Lamar should be in an elite spot. Yeah, it's gonna be close. Well, I also think opportunity is key. People don't realize volume is king. I drafted Javante in every single league. I could get in the 10th or 11th opportunity of him being the lead back is too good. Yeah, that was one like I got really high on him as like training camp and stuff went on. We started hearing more and more buzz, and that was another situation where everybody was pushing Jaden Blue and Phil Maffa as like they were going to take the job, and there's no way Javante Williams. Even though we were hearing report after report of how incredible Javante Williams looked, he looked like pre-injury, like rookie Javante Williams, and how good he looked, and like everything made sense for him to go higher than he did. No one wanted to take him, and it's once again just a classic example of overvaluing rookies. Like I think that there's a point where we want to take it because there's the other flip side of that, right? Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scadaboo, I think, is a good example of that. That where we were on the other side of it, where Scadaboo, it was really close between Scadaboo and Tracy, and then Tracy kind of started with the job. Scadaboo finally got an opportunity and just absolutely destroyed. And Scadaboo never would have. I mean, he would have been the easily a workhorse top 12 running back every week had he not gotten hurt with that fluke injury. So there's also the other side of it too. I wound up with Dart. I said fuck quarterback after I was too late. So who did you start for like the first part of the season though? Like the reason my team was so good this year because I got Javante in the 11th, Dak in the 12th, Keenan Allen in the 13th, hit on Gibbs, Achane, JSN. Yeah, and I know a lot of people got afraid of it from Devon Achane because of like the little bit injury scare and stuff like that. So his ADP actually fell. But JSN was such a slam dunk. Like there was nobody else there. It was like Cooper Cup and who else that they were going to throw the ball to. Like we knew that he was going to get absolutely peppered with targets, but like his ADP never really rose to the point where he was supposed to be. And now next year he's probably like the one. He's definitely going to go within the first five picks of the draft for sure next year. But Dak was easy value. Javante was easy value. Travis Etienne was easy value this year. Lamar at Cincy. I'm going to go Lamar. I mean, we saw Lamar bounce back last week. Um, and he also, I think the more positive thing that really stood out to me the most with Lamar was the 40 rushing yards, which is the most he's had in like 5 straight games. So, like, since prior to his injury. I think actually you got to go all the way back to week 4 against the Chiefs whenever he had that much rushing yards. So, I think that was a positive sign. And so I would go with Lamar. The late round picks are where it's at when you hit on those. Yeah. And I think having like a nice balance of upside plus like players that you can plug in whenever you need them, I think makes a lot of sense. One lesson for me this year is late round tight end will always work. I got McBride and has been great, but if you drafted guys like Fannin, Ferguson, Kraft before ACL, great big. Yeah, I was. Oh man, the Tucker Kraft stuff absolutely killed me. Um, because I was so high on Tucker Kraft this year. Like I just was in love with him. It was like him or Tyler Warren were my favorite two late round tight ends. And Tyler Warren was looking great too. And then Daniel Jones started to fall off and then, got hurt. But I think he could finish really strong. But yes, Tucker Kraft was such a smash and it was looking like an easy pick. But I would agree with you. I think either you go with one of the couple elites, like I know Brock Bowers, and Brock Bowers should be in that conversation with McBride. It's a lot of the offense was really bad. The injuries really killed him earlier in the year. That really didn't help. But like next year, I think it's going to be McBride and Bowers again, and I think those two are going to be the two that I'm perfectly okay with drafting early. But that's about. But if I'm not, then you just wait till the end of your or wait till later. Bears or Broncos D for this week? I'm leaning Bears, but not because they're good. Yeah, I would probably go with the Bears too. Uh, Shador Sanders, while he was really good last week, so obviously they were playing the Titans. He still only completed 50% of his passes, still was sacked, I think, 4 times in that game. And he's also turned the ball over 4 times over his in his 4 starts. So um, I'm perfectly okay with going the Bears. I like the Bears more than the Broncos. Well, I think so. One thing when it comes to the tight end position is we're seeing more and more. If we remember, like it used to be, like when a tight end was drafted, it was like 2 or 3 years before they were even utilized, and like it took forever for tight ends to develop in the NFL. Now these guys are stepping right in and getting immediate opportunity. Like Harold Fannon's a great opportunity, a great option, or great, somebody like that. Also, we had Aranda Gatson break out a little bit this year. Now he's kind of fallen off because the offense has kind of drastically fallen off in terms of the passing game because of the injury to Herbert, their offensive line. They have no time whatsoever to throw the ball, and so that is hurt. But we're seeing more and more where the rookie tight end are getting thrusted into roles really quickly. Tyler Warren. So I think it just really depends. But Tucker Kraft, I think he was an easy one. Joe Brady, I don't know about Joe Brady. Like that Bills offense is pretty frustrating at times. Mark, Tet, Nico, Michael Wilson, Pickens. Is Wilson to sit? Pickens was lackluster last week. Yeah, that was a weird spot with what happened with him, but I don't think he does it again 2 weeks in a row. But I would sit Tet among this group. I would go Tet, Michael Wilson, and Pickens. I can't decide between Drake May or Joe Burrow. I think it's really close between the two of them. I think one factor that you can look at to try to make the decision between both of them, because obviously I have them like neck and neck, is Drake May's rushing upside. I think helps here, which provides a little bit higher of a ceiling for him. He hasn't necessarily ran the ball recently as a higher rate, but he's also just been incredible. Like there's a real shot he wins the MVP this year. But I think his rushing upside, I think, helps a little bit here. Again, huge game. And this one where they're definitely gonna have to throw the ball at a pretty high rate. And it sounds like I don't know if T. Higgins is gonna play. I know they said he got in like a very extremely limited practice today. I would be shocked if he played, considering how many times he went left, came back with that injury. But I would slightly lean towards Drake May. Rico Junkins, Hubbard, full PPR, pick one. Give me Rico Dowdle. Well, it's funny you say that about Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence actually recently has started to play really well. Like the last month of the season, he's been a top 12 quarterback. I mean, it didn't start well. I mean, he had 11, then 21, then 8, then 11, then 27. But really, since the last 3 weeks of the year, actually, the last 4 weeks, I mean, 16 wasn't great in week 11, but then past that 20, 21.7, and 19.4 for Trevor Lawrence. So, I mean, things have turned around a little bit for old T Law. San Fran or Chicago, D? I would go San Fran. Fannin or Kincaid, full PPR. I'm going Fannin. I have Harold Fannin as a top 5 tight end play this week. The most impressive thing about JSN is the Seahawks are 31st in the league in pass attempts per game. That's insane. Dead last is the Ravens barely below. Yeah. But that's how efficient that offense has been. But also, I mean, if you remember last year with the Saints, remember the first couple of weeks of the season when everybody was healthy, and that offense was out here crushing. Like that's why I think Clint Kubiak is going to get a head coaching job somewhere next year. Like he has done a really good job with 2 offenses. I know the Saints offense fell off last year, but that's also a lot of it had to do with injuries more than anything. And then he comes here and they're orchestrating an offense where they're barely throwing the ball, but the passing offense has been incredible. I went early tight end this year because I was so tired of feeling like there's nothing. If you, yeah, I have no problem with going early tight end. Like I think I kind of view it like you play fantasy baseball. It's kind of like the catcher position, right? Where it's very there's not a ton of options. It's not this super deep position where you can just get all like where quarterback. I think it's a lot easier to justify because you could easily miss on tight end. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I loved Laporta this year. But I mean, just getting that locked in security like McBride or Brock Bowers. Now, Brock Bowers, you could say that really didn't hit because he missed all that time, but that was a little more of a fluke injury and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like a tight end dead zone for sure. The Ingram stuff never made any sense to me at all. What about Todd Monken as a candidate? Had some interviews the past cycle. It's possible, but also the Ravens offense hasn't been that great this year. 10 degrees in Cincy game, yikes. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be cold weather in like almost half of the games this weekend for sure. But there's a slight correlation to cold weather and like offensive output, but it's not a huge correlation. Where like wind is like the biggest correlation, like a heavy wind game, like over 20 plus miles an hour, you see a pretty steep drop off in the passing games. Where cold weather doesn't really affect it as much. I did McBride, but I overdrafted when I seen what I could have done late on waivers. Like, but McBride has been phenomenal. McBride has been just as good as JSN. Like, and what I mean by that is like that, like he has been such a cheat code. Like he is literally the RB5 if he was a running back and like the wide receiver 4 is how good he's been as a tight end. And like he is lapping the field in terms of any other tight end anywhere close to him if you had McBride. So like when I say like he is an absolute cheat code. And I'm sure there are teams out there that have JSN and Trey McBride. Kanoa ranked Dowdle, Tracy, Sutton, PPR this week. Probably the way you have it. Dowdle. Well, no, I'd go Dowdle, probably then Sutton and Tracy. Tracy is just the uncertainty of how the touch distribution. It's been very off and on since Mike Kafka has taken over. Kyler was going away. The best thing that happened. Now I hear rumors my Jets are thinking about trading for him. I will say yes. That also really, really helped McBride. Obviously, yeah. Thanks to Jacoby for McBride season. Yeah, but the sad thing is, it just shows like how much Kyler Murray was holding back this offense because we put Jacoby Brissett, who is a career backup, a career journeyman, which he's one of the best like backup quarterbacks in the league. Don't get me wrong, but like the fact that like he has completely unlocked Michael Wilson and has unlocked Trey McBride, where Trey McBride we were questioning if he could ever score touchdowns that he was like the Julio Jones of tight ends because he could never score. Where he is already in the in his first 3 years in the league, he scored 6 total touchdowns. He already has 8 this year. He's on pace this year to break the single season record for the most receptions. I mean, he's already has 93, and we still have 4 weeks left in the season. He's easily going to have well over 1,000 and 10 plus touchdowns this year. And so, I mean, yes, but it also just goes to show you, like I said, how bad Kyler has been and how much he has held back these offenses. Took McBride in the third round, set and forget it, no stress, got me to 9. Yes. And he is absolutely carried. Because even with when Kyler was playing, um, like Trey McBride was usable. Like he was fine. He was still getting you like 12 to 15 fantasy points every week, but there was really no touchdowns in there, and it wasn't like nearly as good as what it's been uh with Jacoby Brissett. Full PPR pick 2. Oh, I was like, where did the other one go? Full PPR, Wandale, Diggs, Wilson, DK, Marvin. So Marvin Harrison, I don't think plays J Pool, but it'll be Wandale and Wilson for me. Canoa, Fannin over Tyler Warren. Yes. Or no, sorry. I would go with Tyler Warren. I mean, Philip Rivers, the other guy that absolutely peppers tight ends, like Jacoby Brissett does, because that's something we've always known about Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is always favored as tight ends. Like he's always targeted them at a really high rate, and Philip Rivers does the same thing. It's absolutely wild that we're going to get Philip Rivers this weekend. It still hasn't sunk in. It's going to be wild seeing him out there. Skip anybody's? No. He's good at Call of Duty, though. I'll cry if the Jets give up a single pick for Kyler. Yeah, it would be absolutely ridiculous for the Jets to trade for Kyler Murray. He decided to avoid injury this year. I have a team that's 2-12 right now because I drafted Malik Neighbors, Tyreek Hill, James Conner, Tucker Kraft, plus BTJ. Yeah, I think it was Lord Reeves, um, Rich Rebar, who had said that I think half of the top 36 wide receivers that were drafted the top 36. The top 36 wide receivers that were drafted this year, I think he said over half of them have either missed multiple weeks or have completely underperformed their ADP this year. Like it's been absolutely a bloodbath for wide receivers. I mean, Justin Jefferson has completely underperformed. So he's been kind of a train wreck. Malik Neighbors, losing him earlier in the year, that was obviously a huge blow, considering people were drafting him in the first round. It's been a gross year. I mean, Nico Collins has been up and down. AJ Brown has been wildly inconsistent. Brian Thomas Jr. I hope he gets traded because I think he needs to. He's just not a good fit with this Liam Cohen offense, and so I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to get traded this offseason, and I think he needs to. But it's just been a wild year, and it's kind of crazy when we think about it. Some of the stuff we've had happen this year. I mean, like I said, Michael Wilson, who has pretty much always been a complete afterthought, has just like turned into like an elite wide receiver all of a sudden. Thanks for doing content consistently giving us. Appreciate you, Kanoa. Hope you are doing well. Let's win some championships. How about that? That sounds like fun. Yeah, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harris Jr., McLaurin, Ladd McConkey, T. Higgins. Yeah, it's been a and speaking of like T. Higgins, like The stuff from Joe Burrow today was pretty concerning. The way he was acting. Like, I don't know if he's just having a bad day, a bad week, but like him talking about like him not really having fun playing football right now and stuff going on off the field. Like, I don't know. Like, there's been people like, oh, is this going to be the next Andrew Luck? We're just going to retire. Like, I don't know about that. But the Cincinnati does this to people. I mean, look what happened with Carson Palmer, who threatened to retire, retired, and then finally was able to get traded. You know, like Cincinnati has just been kind of the same situation where they peaked, but then this team doesn't surround him. Like, yes, they went out and added all these, they gave all this money to T. Higgins and to Jamar Chase, but like their offensive line has consistently been horrible and has completely killed this team. I mean, their offensive line is so bad every single year. Joe Burrow gets completely destroyed. Their defense has fallen off because they've paid. To me, I think it was extremely irresponsible to pay T. Higgins as the number one wide receiver. They should have traded him, moved on from him, kept Jamar Chase, drafted another wide receiver because you can't pay two elite wide receivers. And that's the thing that worries me with the Cowboys next year too. Is that like I know there's talk about them re-signing George Pickens, but again, like, can you really commit that much resources to those two plus your quarterback? I don't know. What the fuck happened to Brian Thomas? I never really watched Jack's game. How much? But see, the thing is that you have to remember with Brian Thomas though. Last year, he didn't really get unlocked until until Mac Jones took over. And then that's when Brian Thomas really went off. I think he had one big game last year with Trevor Lawrence, and then pretty much all the rest of it was with Mac Jones when Mac Jones finally took over at wide receiver or at quarterback last year. So yeah, it's been frustrating. Yeah, Jerry said he's got a franchise tag Pickens. Yeah, 28 million. Yeah, just I don't know. Yeah, it's been a wild year so far. I mean, through the season, even like John. I mean, the Jonathan Taylor stuff. That dude looked like he was going to absolutely just break records, and now you just hate to see it that the offense just kind of fell off. Then you're Javante. I think you could have at a much cheaper price, like if they wanted to resign him. And Javante is still relatively young. I mean, he's not that old. Obviously, he was just coming off his rookie contract last year. He's 25, so I guess next year will be his age 26 season. So I mean he could at least have another couple seasons at him. So like I could see them maybe signing him to some sort of like Chuba Hubbard, James Conner type contract, give him like a 3 year, 30 million, 30, something like that type deal. I think you could do that if you wanted. Jameer Gibbs is gonna be the 101. Yeah, probably. I think it's probably him. Um, Depending on what some of the other teams do, probably Bijan is still there, still in the consideration. JSN for sure. This is buys been a kill, yeah, but a lot of it hasn't just been that. It's been Dan Campbell taking over. Stafford or Lamar. It'd be Lamar for me. Really close. Like, and I wouldn't hate you if you wanted to go with Stafford, right? That game, like I've already said, but like that game was an incredible 55-point total. So like, I would not like fault you at all if you want to go Stafford, especially with how inconsistent and how bad that Lamar's played, other than last week where he finally scored I think 22. So like, I would totally understand if you did not want to go down that road and you wanted to just play Stafford. Totally would get that. Pickens or Rice, I would go with Rasheed Rice at home against the Chargers. I would go with Rasheed Rice. Think Goff's going to have a shootout against the Rams or stick with Purdy? I think Goff is going to have a shootout with the Rams. Yes. The only concern you have with Goff, the only concern you would have with Goff is that they just, once they get down into the red zone, they just run the ball in because Goff doesn't offer anything with his legs. That's the only concern you would have. Who's your top 3 picks next season? Gibbs, JSN. Well, I don't know. Like, I think you could poke some holes in JSN next year if like Kubiak gets poached and goes to another team. Like that would worry you. That, or if the Seahawks brought in like another, which I assume they probably would, bring in somebody else for competition, because that's one of the selling points for JSN has been they just don't have anybody else to throw the ball to. But anyways, so let me see. Chase will probably be in the conversation for sure, but Gibbs, Bijan, for sure are going to be in that conversation. Maybe Achane, depending on the situation there. But I mean, I think Mike McDaniel will be back, so I don't see a whole lot changing there. But I think it'll probably be Gibbs, JSN, Ja'Marr Chase, Bijan, Achane are probably all in there. Tyler Algier is a free agent also. So yeah, yes. I also think that that entire coaching staff is going to be gone too. So I think all of them are going to get fired after this year. Who would you play, Burrow or Lamar? I would play Lamar. I have Lamar too. Actually, I could bring that up. So I have Lamar at 2. I have Burrow at 5. I just think that he turns things around. Like I said, he had the most rushing yards last week that he has since week 4. That's a plus. He's also just had been unlucky. Likely has either had, has lost 2 touchdowns the last couple of weeks that he should have had. There's just been some unfortunate, like, just bad luck things that have happened. So Puka is going to be in the conversation as well. Yes, but I also think it really depends on Devontae Adams, which I think should still be back. So if Devontae Adams is back, it's tough because Puka Nacua has lost so much touchdown equity because of Devontae Adams. Yeah, there's been some dumb ways though that they've utilized. So I still think Bijan is a better running back from that draft. Just garbage team. He's definitely been a garbage team. But there's actually like quite a few of free agent running backs next year that are going to be available. So because you have Javonte who possibly could be next season. Rico Dowdle, which we'll see what happens with him. Not that he's like a huge one, but Travis Etienne is a free agent. Javonte, Rico Dowdle, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker. I mean, J.K. Dobbins. I don't. Doesn't really move the needle for me. But those are kind of the big ones. Rashad White's a free agent. That's going to be pretty big next year for Bucky Irving. But I guess Sean Tucker should still be there. I think. But again, Algier is a free agent. Isaiah Pacheco is a free agent, if that does anything for you. Sean Tucker's a restricted free agent, so I would assume they tender him. He probably is back for next year. So, yeah, there's quite a few. Please pick one running back, one flex. Rico, Nico, or Neil, Aaron Jones, Hampton, Pitch, Tracy. Also one receiver, McLaurin, Ekbuka, Butte. This is going to be easily McLaurin for me. Absolutely love Terry McLaurin this week. Top 10 wide receiver play for me this week against the Giants. The running back, I'll go with Devin Neal. Just assuming that, Alvin Kamara is going to miss. And that's where I think things get tricky. So Hampton would seem like the logical one, but last week, which I do believe that they're like ramping him up in that game against the Eagles, because I know Vidal actually played more. I think it was like 55 to 60% of the snaps to so. But I do think they're just trying to ramp him up. But I will say it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs' run defense for the most part this year has been excellent, and so that really concerns me with Hampton. Like he could find the end zone. Aaron Jones, love the matchup completely for the the Vikings, but the question is what the Vikings last we saw last week, is that real? Or was that a fluke? And so like if the Cowboys were able to come out and build a pretty quick lead, that would worry me for Aaron Jones. And then with Rico, it's really the Chuba Hubbard stuff. But I think Chuba Hubbard makes a lot of sense, or Rico Dowdle, excuse me, makes a lot of sense here. I think you probably feel pretty comfortable that they're going to be. I know the last time they played the Saints, it didn't really work out that well, but I think this is probably a little bit better opportunity there. So I probably would go with Neal and Rico. But if you wanted to get a little different there, I would go Neal and Aaron Jones, I think. Or Neal and Hampton, sorry, I think. And then McLaurin for sure. I love McLaurin this week. I'm worried more about Stafford being gone than Devontae Adams. I think if the Rams, which is entirely impossible, if the Rams win the Super Bowl this year, it's again entirely possible. Yes, you could see Stafford retire. Is McPherson the start of the week? Sure. I love McPherson. Top five tie or top five kicker for me this week. No, the weather doesn't really concern me all that much with that one. Also, like if you're super desperate at tight end, I didn't think about this, but like one tight end that I think is intriguing, which I don't think we have enough time left in the year. We're in the fantasy playoffs, so it probably doesn't matter. But Ben Sinnott, like, are we going to get Trey McBride 2.0 here from Ben Sinnott? Because if you remember, Zach Ertz was with the Cardinals before Trey McBride broke out. Trey McBride was a second round pick, was blocked by Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz went down for a season injury that year. And then all of a sudden, Trey McBride, that's when Trey McBride broke out a couple of years ago. And then now, very similar situation. Ben Sinnott, second round pick, been blocked by Zach Ertz. Like, do we see over the last 3 weeks of the season? Do we see Sinnott really emerge in this offense as like the go-to receiving tight end? I don't know, but again, there's not really enough time left in the year, and I don't think that for the most part you probably want. I mean, you're not going to fire up Ben Sinnott, but I don't know. I think it's something to monitor for sure. Any interest in Andrews? Or are you all in on Likely? I'm all in on Likely. Likely is a top 10 tight end for me. So yeah, Likely at 7, Andrews at 16. Thanks. What quarterback? Dak, Dart, Darnold. I probably go Dak. I think I have Dak at 9. The argument here, Dak for starters. I will say the Vikings have been pretty good against fantasy quarterbacks this year. Like they're definitely have allowed like bottom. They're like in the bottom half of the league in terms of fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. Like they've been really good for the most part against quarterbacks. But this isn't Dallas. So I think that helps this offense. I do think CeeDee Lamb plays. And so I slightly lean towards Dak, but again, really strong matchup for Jackson Dart. The only concern with you have with Jackson Dart at all is do they allow him to continue to run the ball at a really high rate? I think that's the question that you would have. But I would go Dak, I think is where I would land. Your random quarterback almost cost me the playoffs, Tyler Shook. Yeah, he's actually played pretty well. I mean, a lot better than I would have anticipated him playing. Especially like after like all the talk about him during like the preseason, like how he looked horrible, and then they went with Spencer Rattler over him. But he's played really well. Like for fantasy, he's been good. We really have some wild quarterbacks. I mean, We have Jacoby Brissett being a top 12 quarterback every week. We have Michael Wilson doing all this stuff. Now we have Philip Rivers back. If we could just get Jameis Winston starting on an NFL roster next year, I think that would just put it over the top. I was seeing a mock draft earlier, Jets projected to draft Mendoza. I don't know. I don't like. I haven't dug into the rookie class yet, like enough to say anything. Um, but I don't know if this. I don't think this quarterback class this year is going to be very good. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind. I don't want to like give anything like that because, like I said, like I haven't dug too far into it. But I don't know if this quarterback class is good. Like it might be kind of like last year's class, right? Um, Hope Gibbs still gets 15 plus this week. Oh, yes. The great thing about Gibbs is even if like he gets bottled up, because I'll say like against the Rams that the Rams have like one of the best run defenses in the league. But if they can't run the ball with Gibbs, they're just going to pepper him with targets. So he'll get 8 to 10 targets, which in a full point PPR league, I would you almost take that because a target's worth 2.5 times a carry. So pick one to bench this week: Nico, George Pickens, Rasheed Rice, or Jamar Chase. Oh my goodness. Um, I think if I had to choose, if CeeDee Lamb is back and does play, I would bench George Pickens. If he's not back, I guess I would bench Nico Collins. Star one PPR: Pittman, Evans, or Sutton. Give me Mike Evans. Jeremiah Love gone at 50. No, I don't see that happening. The Chiefs desperately need edge rushers for way more than they need a running back. I think there's a much better chance you see the Chiefs draft one of the, or not draft, but sign one of these running backs that are available that are coming out next year versus drafting somebody. And I do not see them drafting Jeremiah Love. Now, unless the only way I could see that is if there's been a lot of talk around here about the Chiefs trading Trent McDuffie this offseason, especially after what Sauce Gardner just got. Like, don't know if Trent McDuffie gets like 2 first-round picks, but he definitely would be fetch another first and probably a third or something like that. So, like, there's been talk because Trent McDuffie is a free agent after the 2026 season. So, thoughts on Tyler Warren? You have to be thrilled that Philip Rivers is the quarterback for the Colts right now, and it looks like he's going to play. So, guess you have to be happy for that because he is somebody that just absolutely peppers targets to the tight end position. So, probably really good news there. And the Seahawks, the one position they have struggled against this year is running backs. I actually love Mendoza. I was in Jetstream saying he was the Hugo before the season. I still don't want to trade of these picks. We suck everywhere. So, like, what did you think of the post game interview he did after the SC or not the SEC Big Ten championship game? Because I don't know, it felt kind of cringy. I guess I don't know. Not that it, like, matters for, like, how good he is. Who goes first overall in fantasy next season, you think? I definitely think it's probably Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson. If Tyler Algier is gone, depending on who they bring in as the next head coach, we also have to remember this year with the Falcons, they lost a lot of their offensive linemen, and their offensive line last year was a top 10 a top 10 offensive line. They lost a ton of guys this year to injuries, and so that has definitely hurt their offensive line. But I fully believe that this coaching staff is gone, and so it really is going to depend on who they bring in. Would Elijah Wilson be a plug and play if Jacobs is out, even against Denver's team? Yes. I mean, if he was out, even against Denver's defense, yes, he would be. But I do think that Josh Jacobs plays. Really makes you think if that zero RB strategy is dead in fantasy now. I don't want to say it's dead because I don't ever think that that's the right way to approach it. I think it comes down to more than anything um, for next year, like who. It really just depends on who's sitting there whenever you go to draft, right? Because it wasn't like the wide receiver position was all bad this year. I mean, you still had even guys that were kind of going right around the first round. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, Jamar Chase is still work. I mean, he hasn't been necessarily what he was last year for sure, but he still has had plenty of smash weeks this year. The quarterback play that has what's really hurt him more than anything. The quarterback injury stuff has really hurt him. But for the most part, he's been pretty usable. So, like, he hasn't killed you. I mean, CeeDee Lamb stuff, but he's also dealt with, high ankle sprain, all that stuff. But he's still been really good. So, like, I wouldn't say it's necessarily dead. I still think hero RB approach, the one where you draft a running back in like the first 3 rounds, like, I definitely want to come away with a starting running back within those rounds. I don't want to wait. Good evening, full PPR, one running back, two flex, Ramondre, Kenneth Walker, Dowdle, Hunt, Chuba, Luther Burden or Marvin Harrison plays. So the running back is going to be Rico Dowdle. Two flex, I'm going to go with Luther Burden and I don't think Marvin Harrison plays. So I guess I would go with Kenneth Walker. But shoot me now for that because it's been so frustrating with Kenneth Walker this season. But yeah, I'd probably go Rico. Think Seattle rolls out Charbonnet to everyone next year. I don't. I think they'll draft somebody. I do. I think they'll but I don't know. Like, because Charbonnet really hasn't been very good this year at all. He's just gotten the touchdowns, and it doesn't seem like they truly, trust him. But I think there's a better chance that they probably draft somebody next year. Because Charbonnet is actually a free agent after 2026. Remember, that was the old Pete Carroll, drafting Kenneth Walker in the second round, and the next year turning right around and drafting Charbonnet in the second round. So in reality, I guess we could just go back and blame all of this on Pete Carroll. Very hard to play for the Jets or New York City without the right mindset. Media is brutal. Oh yeah, I mean, it's just like crazy that the Jets and the Giants have been bad for so long. More so the Jets than the Giants. At least the Jets have had some recent Super Bowl success, at least somewhat recent anyway. I mean, I know Eli. It's been a while since the Eli stuff, but where do we see Seattle become the Chargers and go from bottom five past temps to top 10? I think a lot of it depends on what they do. They need another pass catcher there. I mean, um, JSN is obviously phenomenal, but Cooper Cup his best days are well behind him. But I definitely think they're going to be in the market, and this is going to be a pretty good wide receiver draft. Like, um, I think it's better than this past year's was for sure. But oh man, that 2027 wide receiver draft is going to be something for sure. That 2027 NFL draft as a whole, I think is going to be something to behold. Because you're gonna have Jeremiah Smith in that, you're gonna have Ryan Williams in that, probably Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo is gonna be in that. Like, That 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 wide receiver class is going to be phenomenal. You're probably going to have Ahmad Hardy in that one too, who, if anybody's familiar with him, he has been an absolute monster this year. He should be in that draft as well. So yeah, I don't know if she. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it does sound like he likes it there. I know he talked about wanting to be there long term, but I also think it really depends on what happens with Clint Kubiak and what they do at offensive coordinator, and really largely too, it's going to depend on their defense because that's one thing that's helped them, is that allowed them to be so run heavy has been how good their defense has been this year. Their defense has been absolutely incredible. They're like last year's Broncos defense. I personally feel like the Jets should trade down this year. We're going to lose anyway. Next year is so good. Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of things that happen this offseason that, like, I think we're gonna have a lot of coaching turnovers. This and honestly, like, just looking at what the playoffs are gonna look like this year, it's gonna be so weird with the playoffs because, like, you're probably not gonna have Lamar. You may not have Lamar Jackson. I should mark it as done. The Steelers could definitely lose some more games, and the Ravens get in, but um, may not have Lamar. No Joe Burrow. Probably not no Patrick Mahomes. Like I think this is the year that Josh Allen makes the Super Bowl. I just don't think the Broncos, the Patriots, like I don't think a lot of these teams are ready to win in the playoffs. And if the Bills don't have to face the Chiefs in the playoffs, then I think this is the year that Josh Allen gets it done and gets to the Super Bowl. Myers or Fairbairn this week. It's really hard not to play Jason Myers at this point, as good as Jason Myers has been. I have him as the number one overall kicker. He's been the number one overall kicker. Like the dude is averaging 15 fantasy points a game over the last like 5 weeks. Like it's absolutely incredible. Like everybody has like talked about and hyped up Brandon Aubrey. And don't get me wrong, Brandon Aubrey's a dog, but like Jason Myers has been the best fantasy kicker this year. So I would still go Fairbairn or I would go Myers. But if your gut tells you to go Fairbairn, like if you're worried about the rain and all that stuff, I don't blame you. I still have Fairbairn as the number three kicker, at home in the dome. I don't know how the Chiefs would be able to. The Chiefs don't. The Chiefs have some money issues going on now. They'll figure it out. They're gonna like right now. Like they're projected to be $33 million over the cap, but they will. They're gonna release Jalen Jawan Taylor, the right tackle. That's gonna save them $20 million against the cap. So that'll just right there get them down to about 10 million. Patrick Mahomes every single year because the way his contract's set up has um I that he can restructure his contract every year or turn it into a bonus. So they'll have some money, but they're not going to have that kind of money, I don't think. So I don't see them doing stuff like that. And I think Khalil Mack has already said that like he wouldn't want to play uh, for the Chiefs, that he would never go there. Kelsey has no Yeah, he's a free. Yeah, Kelsey, the way he's talking, the way he's acting, I wouldn't be surprised if he just hung it up and decides to retire. Um, at this point. Maybe he comes back, but I don't know. We'd love to see the Bills get the Super Bowl finally as a Packer fan slash owner. Yeah, the NFC side, I think it's probably going to come down to the Rams. The Packers are in the mix, I think, for sure. But I think it's going to come down. I think the Rams right now are probably the team that I think is the favorite, I think, which would be incredible to get a Rams Bills Super Bowl. Like that would be a lot of fun to watch. Their fan base is incredible. Which I mean, I don't. We talk a lot about like the Bills or like even the Jet or the Browns or the Jets like having it bad, but like imagine being a Bills fan, especially if like you're older and like going through like the late early '90s when they went to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost all of them, and then now you have Josh Allen, this incredible franchise quarterback, this arguably top two probably quarterback in the league, between him and Mahomes, and he just loses every year in the playoffs, and a lot of it's not his fault. I think Sean McDermott has done a lot of really dumb things in the playoffs, and their defense tends to fall apart every year that he's been knocked out by the Chiefs. And but I definitely think if the Chiefs don't make it, which I don't think the Chiefs are going to make it, but if they don't, yeah, I think it's going to be the Bills that go to the Super Bowl. Would you play Scary Terry or JJ? I would go Scary Terry. I have Scary Terry ahead of Justin Jefferson, which worries the hell out of me to ever sit Justin Jefferson. But we're in the fantasy playoffs now, and I can't keep rolling out Justin Jefferson every single week and having the same thing happen. But I have Terry McLaurin as a top 10 wide receiver play. So yeah, I would go Scary Terry here. Because with Jefferson, like I don't know, like he just hasn't shown a ceiling in like all year. I mean, the most he scored in one game was 22.6, and that was all the way back in week 4 against Pittsburgh. But the dude's just been, I mean, 3 straight weeks in a row of 8.8, 2.4, 3.1. Now, I will say, this is a really good spot and a really good matchup. I mean, the Dallas still struggles to stop opposing wide receivers. So, like, that's the only thing that kind of worries you with that game is like the matchup is there and it's really good. But it's also a really good spot for Scary Terry. And with Mariota, like Mariota just peppers him with targets. We kind of saw it the last time that Mariota started against the Broncos, and he put up had that huge game, targeted him 14 times, even though he was running limited routes. So the number one seed on buy in my half point PPR league sniped me on waivers for Jalen Wright. I have Achane. Why would I do that if it doesn't help him at all? I don't play him this week. Weird. Yeah, but the good news for you at least is like it doesn't really matter, and because Achane's fine, he's gonna play. So um, I mean, I guess try to block you. And if Achane was out long term, then but we knew after the game last week. I mean, Daniel came out and said that Achane was fine, that Achane could have went back in that game, but they were blowing the doors, um, off the Jets in that game, so there was no reason to even bring him back out there. So it sounds like he's fine, and so I mean, Achane has like a rushing prop of like 82 yards this week. Like if he wasn't going to play, you wouldn't even see a prop on him. So I it was a waste of an ad, honestly. I mean, unless Achane gets hurt again, but yeah. So I mean, I don't think it really affects you that much, but I will say this is a great time, especially if you're on bye, is just setting your team up for next week because you don't have to. You're not worried about this week at all. Looking to see what defenses are out there and adding a defense for next week as long as you don't have like one of the Texans or the Seahawks, one of the top DSTs. If you don't, like, this is a great week to add that. This is a great week to have a bunch of try to add as many like handcuffs as you can, just in case somebody were to get hurt. So you're already ahead of waivers for next week because like you don't have to worry about any of this stuff this week. So like just trying to set yourself up as best you can for next week is going to be incredible. I will also say that if you can make it to the fantasy championship with a Trey McBride, that because the Cardinals play the Bengals in the fantasy championship week, and obviously we know that that's how bad the Bengals are against tight ends. Like Trey McBride could go absolutely just berserk um, against the Bengals. So like, really hope we can get there. There's no reason to Achane fairly early in the game. I was yeah. If Achane didn't get hurt, Achane probably was going to go for 200 plus yards. I grab Jags defense, even though I have Seattle. Keep away. Can me two things if you have the most roster space. Yeah, and at this point, like honestly, when it comes to your bench, at this point, I mean, we have 3 weeks left in the year, right? And there's no next week. You have to win this week or whatever. But if you have a bye, like drop players that like you would never play. Like if you have a wide receiver, like I'm not dropping like somebody that can help somebody else. But let's say you have I don't know what's a good example for like a wide receiver like Alec Pierce or um Ricky Pearsall, or if, let's say you picked up John Mechie or Romeo Dobbs, or like guys like that you're probably never going to play in the next 2 weeks. If you're like set at wide receiver, like I would be dropping all those guys at on buy if you have a first round buy and just going through and trying to add as many handcuff running backs you can. Because if somebody goes down, I mean that's going to be the biggest separator. Wide receivers don't like even like when a player gets hurt outside of I guess for Michael Wilson, but other than him, for the most part, we see an injury to a wide receiver, even a top wide receiver. It doesn't really change a whole lot because targets aren't just given all to one player. Where like at running back, if somebody goes down, let's say Kyron Williams goes down because Blake Corum has been widely available the last like month, which is wild. But then Blake Corum would be a league winner. Like Blake Corum would be a top 10 running back next week if Kyron Williams got hurt. And so, like, I think that's the smartest thing you could do right now is if you're on buy, is just dropping those players you're never going to play. Yeah, John Mechie, you can drop him all day. There's no reason to hold him anymore. Like, whenever we're going through buys and all that stuff is happening, like, sure, like during the regular season where you may need that player for a bye week fill in, but in the fantasy playoffs, like, you're probably not playing those guys, and we have no buys anymore to worry about. And so, like, that's the stuff that I think makes the most sense is dropping those players that you're never going to play and you're not going to help somebody else with, and just trying to stack up as many, um, you know, handcuff backs that you possibly can. That makes sense. Like Ray Davis would be a great one to add if like James Cook went down. Um, he would be that guy. Emmanuel Wilson, if he was dropped, like he would be that guy. If somebody dropped Sean Tucker, if something happened to Bucky Irving again, we know he would step right back into that role. Like those type of guys are way more valuable. Tyler Algier and Blake Corum, for whatever reason, he still wasn't added. Like all of those guys, like become instant, lottery winners if something were to happen to start a starting running back over the next couple of weeks. And we're now to the point in the season where if some of these teams that are out of it and those a guy gets banged up, they may just shut him down for the rest of the year. Which defense would you pick up for week 16 and 17? I don't want to pick up a defense for 2 weeks, but for like just week 16 alone because I'm just going to try to stream. But for just looking ahead to next week, I think the Saints defense is a very good defense to add for next week. They play the Jets. Um, so I do like the Saints quite a bit. The Chiefs. The Chiefs are a great defense to have if they're sitting out there. That's actually what I did because I have a first round bye next week. So I went ahead and added the Chiefs for next week. I think they are a very good defense. You could look to add. Oh man, the Texans play the Raiders next week. My goodness, Texans are going to go nuclear. I don't mind the Lions against the Steelers. You probably could do that, but I don't think that's a must. Trying to look. What are some of these spots here? Bills, but they're probably on rostered. Packers, Bears, Rams, Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. Oh my goodness, that's a good one too. Oh yeah, next week it starts Saturday games as well. That's right, because we get Packers, Bears on Saturday night. So I think Saints and the Chiefs are probably the two that stand the most out to me right now. Are the two defenses that I think that make the most sense as like a streaming option. Possibly the Lions. I've been in the playoffs for 4 weeks. I've been dropping and picking up shit. I wound up with 3 quarterbacks and Ds, one at one point, just focus on my opponent. I made the playoffs for real after winning. What's best for you, but always remember to screw the person you're playing also. Yeah, you can. I think I read today that Algier has more PPR fantasy points than Buck Buckyear. Probably does. I mean, Buck Buckyear missed a significant amount of time. But yeah, and Algier's been usable. Bryce, Neal or Genty? I would go with Neal, or I would go with, excuse me, I would go with Genty. It is close. I have them fairly close to each other, but I would slight lean towards Genty. I do like Devin Neal quite a bit, but I would go with Ashton Genty. Just because we know, I mean, he's gonna get a full workload. He doesn't have like a Taysom Hill to worry about or anything like that. It is an easier matchup. I will say the Eagles' run defense has struggled. Yeah, you pretty much have the guys that I have all right next to each other. Jetsy, Henderson, Neal. Yeah, you do. So you think T. Higgins will play this week? I think it would be ridiculous if he did, considering what happened with him last week. And now the Bengals are pretty much out of it. So, but I mean, they said today he was going to get in some form of limited practice, which was absolutely wild to me. That would even be a thing because of he went in and out of the lineup last week. Then he started suffering from concussion symptoms again. So when it comes to Marks and saying like I have him that low, and it's not necessarily I'm even worried about the Cardinals. It's just Woody Marks hasn't been great. Um, he's on the injury report. They just ran him into the ground against the Chiefs, but like he's been fine if he could find the end zone. Like maybe I have him a little bit too low, maybe I have him a little bit higher, but I mean he's been pretty much the guy for. I mean, good point. Like Tennessee, right? Like against Tennessee, he scored 6.1 fantasy points. Against Indy, again, another matchup that's really not that bad. 7.7. Like he really hasn't been all that great this year. What's really frustrating with him is they don't utilize him in the passing game really at all. And so like he has to score a touchdown. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad matchup against the Cardinals, but it just like I'm not as high on him because I don't think he has an incredible ceiling. So that's kind of where I view Marks. Drop one. Waller, Loveland, Juwan. I have Fannin. You think I can drop two of them? I just love Waller's matchups. I think you can. Um, it would be depend on who you're picking up. But you definitely don't need all these tight ends. I will say that for sure. So, um, but if I had to, if I had to drop them, I mean, obviously, I want Fannin first. And then I'd probably go Juwan. No, I'd probably go Waller because Waller, I believe, gets the Dolphins next week. So, um, yeah, yeah. So I would probably just keep Fannin and Waller. You probably could just drop Juwan Johnson and Loveland at this point. But remember, if you're going to do it, wait until like Saturday. So somebody can't pick him up and use him against you or anything like that. So they have to wait and get him through waivers. Hard to watch Mark get pounded like that last week. Yeah, I mean, he looked like he was about to like die, like not die, but like he was definitely like, especially at the end of that game, like he was cooked. Bears defense or 49ers. Really close. Obviously, I have them at 5-6, but slight lean towards 49ers. Hopefully, Jake Ferguson will get more looks. Yeah, if Jake Ferguson, I mean, if CeeDee Lamb misses, Jake Ferguson jumps up. Is probably like a top 5-6 tight end play without him. Terry, would you play Likely against Andrews this week? Yeah, I would play Likely. I have Likely ahead of Mark Andrews. I have Likely at 7. Like, incredible spot. Oh, if Neil's sitting out there, I'm 100% adding him. And just pray that the Saints don't do something stupid. And like, I don't know why they haven't shut down Alvin Kamara at this point. It really doesn't. I don't even know why you just don't throw him on the IR. There's no reason to have him play. What one bit? Like, you're not proving anything with playing Alvin Kamara at this point. I would just let Devin Neal finish out the year. So, well, that being said, we've went over 2.5 hours here. Oh, almost 2.5 hours. So it's a concussion. Lamps like he's got to play if he doesn't. Ferguson, yeah. I was surprised with the way that injury looked for CeeDee Lamb, that he is going to make it back this quickly. I think the extra time probably helped, having the Friday, Saturday, Sunday in between. I think that probably helped him be able to come back. But that was certainly a problem. Or that certainly was surprising to me that he was able to make it back like that. So, anyways, that being said, it is past midnight here in Central Time, in the great state of Missouri. But we're gonna, so I'm gonna get out of here. We're live now for 2 hours 15 minutes. Appreciate all the support. Let's get some W's this week. Should have the video out for the running back, or my top plays of the week and all the positions. Probably have that out Friday morning. I was hoping to do it tonight, but just kind of ran out of time. So I'm going to do it tomorrow. We're pushing the DFS. If you're in a DFS, we're pushing that live to Friday night. So we'll be live Friday night. So if you haven't already, appreciate everybody. Appreciate all the support. If you haven't, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and let's get the dubs this week. Let's keep moving on to the fantasy championship, and I'll see everybody on the next one. Bye.